Zuckerberg writes a love letter to a lot of people that claimed he was censoring them in 2020 election. So this is, if you can show the logo all the way at the top so they know it's Meta. Okay, so it's to the Honorable Jim Jordan, Chairman, Committee on the Judiciary. And then he says, Chairman Jordan, I appreciate the committee's interest in content moderation on online platforms. As you are aware, Meta has produced thousands of documents as part of your investigation and made a dozen employees available for transcribed interviews. Further to our cooperation with your investigation, I welcome the opportunity to share what I've taken away from this process. There's a lot of talks right now around how the U.S. government interacts with companies like Meta, and I want to be clear about our position. Our platform, our platforms are for everyone. We're about promoting speech and helping people connect in a safe and secure way. As part of this, we regularly hear from governments around the world and others with various concerns around public discourse and public safety. Okay, we're good so far. In 2021, senior officials from Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take content down, and we own our decisions, including COVID-19 related changes we made to our enforcement in the wake of this pressure. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. So he mans up and takes responsibility for it, right? The fact that, look, they forced us, but we could have said no, but we said yes. I also think we made some choices that, with the benefit of hindsight and new information, we wouldn't make today. Like I said to our teams at the time, I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards due to pressure from any administration in either direction, and we're ready to push back if something like this happens again. In a separate situation, the FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma in the leads up to the 2020 election. That fall, when we saw a New York Post story, we all remember the story, reporting on corruption allegations, including then Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's family. Guys, this is pretty bad. I mean, it doesn't get worse than this. We sent that story to fact checkers for review and temporarily demoted it while waiting for a reply. It's since been made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation. And in retrospect, we shouldn't have demoted the story. We've changed our policy and processes to make sure this doesn't happen again. For instance, we no longer temporarily demote things in the U.S. while waiting for fact checkers. Rob, if you can go to the next story, zoom in a little bit more. There you go. Apart from this content moderation, I want to address the contributions I made during the last presidential cycle to support electoral infrastructure. The idea was here to make sure local elections jurisdictions across the country had the resources they needed to help people vote safely during a global pandemic. I made these contributions through the Zuckerberg initiative. They were designed to be nonpartisan. Of course, they were partisan, spread across urban, rural, and suburban communities. Still, despite the analysis I've shown otherwise, I know that some people believe this work benefited only one party over the other. My goal is to be neutral and not play a role one way or another, or even to appear to be playing a role. So I don't plan on making a similar contribution this cycle. So Rob, go back to the tweet. And Tom, I'm going to go to you first. Here's what I said. I said, so Zuckerberg just admitted to working with Biden-Harris administration to censor Americans. He's either admitting to this because he's being honorable, he's done with the Democratic Party, or he's getting ahead of a whistleblower. Either way, this is a very hard letter for him to write. Tom, your thoughts on the story?
Well, I think he's getting ahead of a whistleblower because I think there's going to be people that testify because there's going to be hearings. Trump wins, there is going to be hearings, and he knows it. How does he know? Well, words talk, numbers scream. And if you're Zuck, how do you scream? You scream with lobbyists. Rob, you have that chart real quick? So lobbying is how he talks to the government, and then he knows what's going on. He hears from people. Take a look at this. The social media people, which is Meta, ByteDance, which is our good friends at TikTok, right? X, Discord, and Snap. This is what they all spend. And if you take a look, Snap, Discord, and X, they hardly spend anything, not even 8% of it. The majority is ByteDance and Meta. Of the $30 million it's spent, look at that blue bar. Meta spends by far the most. Of 142 registered lobbyists in social media, Meta has 71.
Get out of here, 50%.
50% of them. ByteDance is 45. And X, Discord, and Snap, they only have 25, with Snap and Discord having 17. So that means that Elon's got 8 lobbyists like 10, 11%.
How do you process that?
I process it is that Zuck is writing this to us, to Jim Jordan, who is going to chair the hearings. He knows what's coming, and he has the lobbyists up there that they have their ears on the ground. Lobbyists don't only talk to our elected officials, they listen to them. And I think Zuck knows exactly what's going on. There are stories out there and there are statistics out there that Instagram had and still has a pedophile problem. Pedophiles use coding and they try to beat the systems on Insta to have their postings, and that he still has that issue going on. And I wish in the last part of that letter that he didn't say, I won't be making a similar contribution this year. I wish he said he won't be making any. Because people popped up immediately. Similar, you mean the same dollar amount similar? Or if it's 5% less, you're saying it's not similar. So there's a lot of words that people like me looked at it with kind of a legal eye and picked things out in this letter. This letter is Zuck getting out ahead of it.
Okay. Amy, what do you think?
I completely agree with Tom's sentiments. And even if it's not the last thing and maybe he is being honorable, in my opinion, it's a little too late. I feel like COVID is one of those things that was really memory hold upon people. We forget the level of psyop that we went through. Like, this is probably the biggest psyop of my generation, at least that I've lived through, where they were literally convincing you that you're a granny killer if you left your house. Like, the amount of psychological warfare that was utilized, people who were kept away from their family. So for him to come out and state all of this now, even if you are being honorable, I'm sorry, it's too little too late. Anybody who is trying to use the advent of social media to actually share the truth and to correct the total psyop that was occurring during that time were completely suppressed. Their accounts were suspended. They were pushed off the platform. And so, in my opinion, it's too little too late. And to Tom's point, I'm going to actually bring up that story a little bit later with the pedophiles on Instagram. It's rampant. And they've actually run experiments and simulations to determine when a brand new user is on the platform, how quickly are they exposed to sexualized and pedophilic content. And spoiler, it's really fast and it's really creepy. So for me, it doesn't cut its up.
I got questions for you guys. This is good, but I'm going to go to Adam, and then I got questions for you. Go ahead, Adam.
So there's a similar theme that we're seeing pop up left and right, and that is the conversation that is very much needed about freedom of speech. I mean, the biggest story over the weekend was this guy, Pavel Durov, the CEO, founder of Telegram, that gets arrested in France. So Mark Zuckerberg, if you want to, use Tom's thing, words talk, numbers scream. Look at where Facebook's done in the last 2-3 years. October of 2022, they bottomed, their stock price basically pummeled, was below $100 for the first time. He was the top 5 richest man in the world. Boom, he was down somewhere around 20. Now this guy's in the top 5 again. Their stock price is somewhere around 520 because basically they changed the name from Facebook to Meta. They put in different protocols. If you kind of want to think of what you remember from Mark Zuckerberg in the last few years, there's a few things that pop up to me. Number one is his whatever alleged fight with Elon Musk that never transpired. Number two, when he had to speak in front of Congress and basically got chastised. He had to turn around and apologize to the families. I mean, you want to make a robot look human. Good luck doing that in front of people of Congress. But, it's funny because I remember you had a conversation, this would have been 2021 in the Boca office, with this very young, naive, some call him very attractive young man. And he was asking you, why would Facebook pick a side? Like, I don't get, I guess that young man was me. But I said, and we got into it. Do you remember this meeting? Not that PBD and I would ever disagree or you'd ever yell at me.
For those of you listening at home, Adam has attempted to call himself young.
Thanks, Tom. As always.
That was an Australian accent. Is what he tried to do.
No, that's the BBC. They do that.
I got you. Okay.
Nice, Tom.
Go ahead, Tom. That was good.
So I remember we had a very interesting conversation, and it was probably the first awkward moment we had. And I was sort of naive to the fact I was like, well, why would Facebook censor things? Like, genuinely, what do they have a horse in this race? Lo and behold, they did. But a lot of things happened during 2020, like the whole World Economic Forum, the whole thing was the Great Reset.
Yeah.
And that was their plan. But in reality, there was a Great Reset, and everyone had to basically reveal their hand. Whether it's the Twitter files, whether it's the Facebook files are coming out now, everything is surfacing like, really, what were you doing? So at this point, where do you think even Zuckerberg is even voting at this point? Because the other thing I'll say that I remember about Zuckerberg is him, I don't know, a month ago, basically saying, listen, regardless how you feel about Trump, him getting up with the blood pouring out of his ear was the most badass thing I've seen in my lifetime. This thing right here with my good friend Emily Chang. But you have that clip?
I do.
There you go, Rob, on the ball. Watch this.
Which one is this?
I've done some stuff personally in the past. I'm not planning on doing that this time. And that includes, not endorsing either of the candidates. Now, look, there's obviously a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. The historic events over over the weekend. And on a personal note, it's, seeing Donald Trump get up after getting shot in the face and pump his fist in the air with the American flag is one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life. But look, it's, as...
That's pretty much it right there, Rob. But the point is, what we're starting to see is this. The Silicon Valley, big tech, VC, big money, we're starting to see them, whether slowly or even rapidly in some cases, like the All In podcast, are all gravitating towards Trump.
So I got a question for you.
Or running toward the middle to avoid where they're going to be in front of congressional hearings.
So let me ask this question. So is it okay for... how old is Zuck right now? 39? Has he hit 40
Probably
yet?
40 right now.
How old is Zuck? Zuck
under 40.
Okay. He's...
40.
Okay, he's 40 years old. So 2016, he's what? 32. 2020, he's 36. One of the smartest guys in the world. Worth a couple $100 billion. Okay. Does he have the right to change his mind and sincerely be wrong?
Yes.
Does he have the right to do that? Yes?
Not only the right, but the obligation, like all of us.
Okay,
everyone should.
But the point is, he can still change, right? He can still change and say, "Hey, I effed up. I effed up with my move on what I did." He can still do that.
Correct, but we don't have the obligation to forgive him. That was my point.
I'm totally with you. So, okay, that's great. We don't have the obligation to forgive him, which is kind of the part about we can, maybe forgive, move on, don't forget. He's capable of doing it again. Maybe you don't trust him. His trust score is lower with us right now. Okay, no problem. But if a person's going through this phase in our own lives, the longer you live, you're going to make mistakes in your relationships, business, company, people you do business with, whoever you're with, your marriage, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, you're going to go through this. And one may come and say, hey, here's what happened. Now, the individual has the choice in a relationship to say, nope, I'm not. This is the line you cross. We're done, right? We're done with this relationship. I'm never going to be with you again. We're moving forward, okay? Or you can say, all right, the fact that you admitted to it, I'm going to give you a chance. Let's move on. So that's one category. Let's set that part aside. Let's go to the next one. The other side is, could there be a possibility that he is doing this because, to me, the way I read this is either he's now no longer a Democrat, he's no longer center. He's seeing all the guys that he admires and admired, okay, maybe an Ellison. I'm not even saying Musk. Yeah. I'm saying an Ellison. A lot of these guys now moving to the center right, maybe a Peter Thiel, who gave him some money many, many years ago. Thiel gave this guy $500,000. They asked Thiel, what's one of the biggest mistakes you ever made in your life? You know what he said?
Not giving Facebook more.
He says, not giving Facebook more money on the second round that they came up to me, because I would have even more money. He says, I should have given to them.
He was the very first, remember?
He was the very first guy that gave $500,000. So he's watching Thiel that goes in this position. He's watching Ellison right there. He gave $500,000 in August of 2004. That $500,000 for 10% of the stake.
Nothing.
What is Peter Thiel's net worth today, by the way? Type in Peter Thiel net worth.
I'm guessing $10 billion.
$9.2 billion. So
he's a beast.
There's a part of these guys that Zuck watches closely to see where they're going. So maybe he is slowly becoming Team Trump. Now let me go to 3. Maybe he's not Team Trump, but he's sitting there and watching, and a part of the way you write this letter is to say, guys, listen, I'm telling you, Trump's winning. It's over, okay? It's over. Trump's winning. We have to find a way to be friendly with these guys, because if we don't, they're going to make our life a living hell. So why don't we just get ahead of it? So during his 4 years while he's in office, they don't bother us. There's so many different ways they can make our life a living hell. Guess what? Musk is now close to him. Here's what's going to happen. X is about to whoop our ass because Musk got smart and got close to Trump, and I have not. Maybe I need to do a Facebook Live with Trump, me and Trump. So maybe don't be surprised if in the next 2 weeks, the right move for Zuck to do is maybe to do a Facebook Live with Trump, and you ask him some questions, okay?
I don't know about that, Pat.
By the way, let me tell you, what do you mean you don't know about that? By the way, let me tell you, if he doesn't, I'm telling you right now, if he doesn't do it, if anybody at Facebook executives watching, send it over to the team and let them hear this. If you don't do this, and Musk did that, what X shows to the rest of the world is they're willing to hear opposing ideas and you're not. If you, Zuck, invite publicly, this is how you do it. I'm inviting Kamala Harris and Trump individually, one-on-one with you separately, to have a conversation with me on Facebook Live. And you can say Kamala's campaign declined, Trump's campaign accepted, so they won't say, now you're playing the right card. I think that's the one move that he has to play. If he doesn't do it, Musk's got such a big advantage. For anybody that owns the X stock from 2024 to 2028, you can have a good time if you're a shareholder in the X stock, because I think that's going to be a season where he's going to play in a way that he's never played before. The whole freedom of speech concept is going to get to a whole different level. He's going to have the backing of the administration. Don't be surprised if during that 4-year period, by the end of the 4-year, by 2028, do not be surprised if X is not worth $500 billion. Okay? And I know what you're going to say, where it's at right now, all this other stuff. I'm telling you, do not be surprised by the end of 2028, if Trump is in office, that this takes place.
I don't disagree, Pat. I just have one question. How the hell do we get in on the Twitter stock or the X stock? It's private.
You can't, because it's private. So I'm just
now you're getting my emotions worked up.
He's gonna, those who try to get in, they got in. Those who didn't, I tried to get in 10 million, they won't let me do it. I called Morgan Stanley, I called Goldman. You couldn't
You want
get
me
in.
to make a call for you?
If you could, that'd be great.
Gotcha.
By the way, you got the friends that could make that happen. So let me go last but not least to this one here. You know what the last but not least message is? To all the people, imagine the people right now who were the ones who said, well, you know this is disinformation. You mean to tell me there's anything in the Hunter Biden laptop? These guys are so dumb. 50 Secret Service agents, people signed off and said there was nothing in that laptop. To those of you, there's a part of me, Tom, and please push back. All three of you, push back, okay? You mean to tell me in the span of a week, this is Trump's greatest week he's had on this run? This is the greatest week he's had. And last night I had a conversation with Kevin McCarthy, good conversation. He says, the next 70 days in the political life cycle is 10 years. Anything can change. Don't be fooled. But during this 1 week, RFK, Tulsi, Zuck, all in a week, you're having something like this happen in a single week. Guess what this means? Maybe, just maybe, this is not going to be a small victory, Tom. Maybe this is going to be a type of a victory that we saw where only Minnesota didn't support Reagan. Maybe this is going to be something like that the next 70 days. What are your thoughts?
I think it's possible. We are, first of all, Amy and I on the Decision 2024 brought to you by Valuetainment, one of the things we look at is the real numbers. And we are seeing that there was not a crazy bounce for Kamala Harris, even out of the hard left polls like Trafalgar, who is known to be a hard bias left poll. And you look back at the history. The bounce wasn't there. And remember, what was supposed to happen from Friday to Monday? It was supposed to be like winning the World Series. Like winning the World Series, what do you do downtown? You have a victory parade. That's not what's happening. There's not a victory parade happening right now. Instead, in the middle of getting their parade ready, what happens is RFK walks on stage. And they did it in Arizona, a major state that's a huge battleground state. And so what has happened here...
Is there a possibility of a massive sweep?
Yes.
What do you think, Amy? Is there a possibility of a massive sweep?
When you consider the circumstances that took place during that Reagan election, I would say yes. Many of the circumstances are very much in line. And when I look at, the idea of Zuckerberg possibly reversing course because he fears the implications, that makes sense because think about it. He has all of the back end data. He can see how much the Biden-Harris campaign is spending on these ads as well compared to Trump. He can see the way the algorithm is manipulating information to spread a narrative. And so he actually probably sees the true state of the situation situation, what the true picture actually is, versus the media narrative that everybody's receiving on the other end. And so I do think that is possible. And for that reason, I think that's why Zuck is coming out and writing this love letter, so to speak, not again out of anything genuine, but because his hand's kind of being forced now.
And we're at 75% 287 right now on Trump. 75% probability on 287. VT Analytics, not our opinion. We dive into the crosstabs. We're just a heartbeat now from 300. And that is a huge tipping point when you look at things like Virginia and other states that are very close. Trump can take the blue wall very easily.
For 13 and a half years, I know this sounds kind of weird, I've been working on a fiction book. I've never written a fiction book before until now. It's called The Academy.
Damn.
I've been working on this thing since 2011. It's a story about a kid who gets recruited into a secret society that's been around for a long time that develops the greatest leaders in the world, and you get a chance to go into this vault to learn from different leaders. Imagine having a one-on-one conversation with people that have been dead for many years, but this technology allows you to have a conversation with them, ask them about any issues that's going on. There's 10 characters in this book. Tupac's one of them. Marilyn Monroe's another one. Who else can I tell you? Ayn Rand's in it. Karl Marx is in this book. There's a lot of tense moments. There's one character in the book that's going to be very controversial. The whole idea for these guys in this book is, I've never written a parenting book, but for some of you guys that like a Divergent meets Atlas Shrugged meets maybe, those two books, this is a book you're going to enjoy reading, specifically if you have kids ages 14 to 18, as well as adults. You'll enjoy it as well. This comes out next month, September, The Academy. Rob, if you can put the link below, you can go to Amazon to place the order this book. We'll be talking more about this here, but for those that order early, you'll get your copies. These things sell out fairly quickly.
Can I see this thing?
Yes, The
It kind
Academy.
of reminds me of the painting, your most famous painting, kind of come to life.
So that painting is the book. So you'll see some of the
sense.
conversations that's being had here.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.